We'll get to more phone calls coming up. Louis Riddick, one of our favorites, college football analyst and ESPN NFL analyst. And Louis will be with Matt Berry. They call Virginia, Georgia Tech. That'll be Thursday on the mothership at 7 Eastern. Louis, thanks for joining us. Let me start with the analytical part of looking at the Denver Broncos offense. What exactly, if you were going to say to Russell Wilson, here's the problem, or here's the solution, what would you do in an advisory role?
Yeah, I think for Russ, I think you have to, one, stop trying to be perfect. Two, just kind of play your game in the style and the manner in which got you to the level that you're at as far as people regarding you as one of the best overall playmakers, off-schedule playmakers, really, that the league has seen in the past 10 years at the very least.
Now, explain by being perfect.
Well, I guess it's like this. Russ is probably at his very, very best outside of structure. And every quarterback, I think, constantly hears win from the pocket, win from the pocket, win from the pocket, stay in the pocket, make sure you go through progression, stay in the pocket at all costs. And when Russ tries to do that, I think it limits his game and limits his creativity and limits his ability to make explosive plays and kind of make up for maybe some of the limitations that whatever offense that he is in has. Right now, the limitations that his offense has in Denver is consistent pass protection, obviously a dependable run game, especially after the injuries that they've had at the running back position. So I think he's almost forced now to become, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way at all, but kind of like schoolyard, backyard Russ, where he's going to have to extend and make plays and go off schedule, probably even more so now because he just can't sit in the pocket anyway. So I think for him, I think he just needs to really, and I mean really, just cut it loose. Do not listen to anything in regards to trying to be something that you're not. Just be who you are and who you've been at your very best, which is when you are just creating and making things happen. That's when you're at your best. We've criticized him for it in the past, saying that he has sometimes made things too hard on him, maybe taken unnecessary sacks, maybe missed some short and intermediate checkdowns that could have been just as fruitful as the big bomb that he is going after in the long term. But I think right now that's what he's going to need to do. This wide receiver core, you've heard numerous different people talk about the fact that they are underperforming, not the most disciplined route runners, not necessarily in the spots that this offense would want them to be as far as their spacing, route precision. Those are the kind of things that you would probably expect, though, when you have a bunch of young guys trying to learn a new offense that really, in terms of the league setting it up in the offseason for you to have enough time to get to know one another, it really doesn't work to your advantage. I mean, a lot of times there just isn't enough time. And I know quarterbacks get together with wide receivers in the offseason and have throwing camps and, invite them to their homes, maybe go to some warm weather climate and try to build some chemistry for a week or two. But look, it just doesn't really work that way. It doesn't come together that fast. We're seeing that around the league, that teams that, or rather players and teams that kind of de-emphasize the offseason, once the regular season starts, they're slow starters. And then, we hear about teams having to use the first month of the season as maybe an extended form of training camp. And when you have a new coaching staff and a new quarterback who's trying to get to learn new wide receivers, there's going to be some bumps in the road in the best case. And then when you have a worst case scenario where your offensive line isn't playing up to par, you don't have a really solid running game. The wide receivers are young. They're not always the greatest route runners, although they are very good athletes and talented individuals. This is what you're going to come up with. This is what's going to wind up happening. And then here's the cherry on the top as far as Russ's situation is concerned. You have a head coach who clearly, to put it mildly, is very green when it comes to overall game management, roster management, maybe even player management, as far as taking control of this thing and not letting it get off the rails in the middle of a game. So that's why now Denver, anointed by many in the offseason as being maybe one of the favorites in the West, despite the fact that Patrick Mahomes has ruled over that division like Lord Vader for years now. I think it meant people are having to walk that back and go, yeah, maybe I didn't take into consideration that this is a new quarterback, rookie head coach, young wide receivers, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts here. And this is what you get when that happens. And
Do we know who the Chargers are right now?
I think from a personnel perspective, Dan, yeah, we do. We know that Justin Herbert is special and unique. We know that Mike Williams is special, unique. We know that Keenan Allen is one of the unsung heroes, or rather, I shouldn't say heroes. He's one of the unsung route runners and just productive overall wide receivers that the game has seen in the past 6-7 years. We know those things, and we know that Austin Eckler is a stud. So we know that they're talented on both sides of the ball, that they have talented people at key positions. What we don't know is, in the biggest of moments, how will Brandon Staley manage the game? Will he manage it objectively off of a probability / analytics sheet? Will he go with his gut, his football intuition? Will it jive with common sense in those critical moments, especially when you're going to be matched up against, in your division in particular, one of the most respected coaches in the history of the NFL, and Andy Reid? Are you going to make the critical decisions that will be able to one up a guy like Andy Reid? We don't know those things yet because they haven't proven those things yet. But we know 1 through 53 that when these guys are healthy, and obviously they've suffered some big time losses with Rashawn Slater, with Joey being hurt right now. I mean, I think there's a lot more questions still than answers, although they are a team that a lot of people love to get behind and say, this is a very, very talented team. But they ask the same question you just asked, but we just don't know who they're going to be when it matters the most. And I don't think we still know that answer.
How nervous would you be if you're a Packer fan right now?
Extremely.
How did this happen?
I think it starts, obviously, a lot of the problems that you see crop up during the season, especially the early part of the season, really started in the offseason. I think the uncertainty surrounding Aaron's situation, how it trickled down to the decision that Davante Adams made to leave, Aaron not necessarily being around this offseason, around those young wide receivers. See, this is what I'm talking about, where you have a limited amount of time, in a really structured environment at the facility to work with players and get to know one another and develop chemistry, so as it is, as mandated by the CBA. When you then don't even do that, but then you have a bunch of young wide receivers and you lost one of the most prolific, most talented wide receivers in the NFL, and he just walks out the door, and now you're trying to bring this new group together and you're not around as the quarterback. There's just no way. There's no way that in a mandatory minicamp setting, and then in a few training camp practices where then you're not even dressing and playing full speed during games. And I don't care how many joint practices you do, they're nothing like games. It's still different. It's still different because it's not scripted. And it's a game in a stadium with fans, and you have a different uniform on, and it feels different. And the pressures are it's all different. I don't care if it's preseason or regular season. It's different than what a joint practice is. When you don't partake in all that stuff, if you're not familiar with one another, you're going to have bumps in the road, man.
I had a problem with Rodgers not getting together with these receivers.
That's right.
Play just a couple of get into a preseason game and help them understand the magnitude of, hey, you don't replace Davante Adams, or you don't. Right. Collectively, we do. So I did have a problem with that.
I did too. But see, many excused Aaron because he's Aaron. And I get that on the surface. This guy's a prodigy, a savant, a one of the guys who many people deem as maybe the most talented pure passer in the history of the NFL, because he can do things with the way he throws the football and the positions he can get himself in and still deliver the football accurately that you've never seen anyone be able to do. And that's great for him. But it's like, the reason why some great players don't ever become coaches is because they expect players to be able to do the things that they were able to do, and they can't. And they can't really communicate it to them, so they don't ever become coaches. Well, Aaron is now maybe expecting some of these wide receivers to do things that Devontae was able to do and have the same kind of chemistry he was able to have with Jordy Nelson back in the day. But they can't. They just can't do that, especially if they don't have the exposure to him in terms of live reps that those guys accumulated over years and years. And that's not to say that Aaron has ridiculous expectations of these guys, because he's spoken about the fact that I can't expect them to be where those guys were when we were clicking on all cylinders.
But does it now become...
If you know that, then be there in the offseason.
Does it become even more evident that the Packers have to go get OBJ when he's available?
I don't... as far as his experience, OBJ's playmaking ability, he says he has a good relationship with Aaron. Yeah, on the surface, Dan, it looks like it makes sense. But remember, when he went to LA, there was kind of a breaking in period between him and Matthew Stafford, between him and Cooper Kupp, between him and the offense overall, until it really started going. And I don't know. And he's still not healthy. We don't know where he's at. So it's like, man, will it be too little too late? And then there's other things going on with that team anyway. Like, as this offensive line has gotten healthier and players have returned, like Elton Jenkins gets healthier, David Bakhtiari gets healthier, it still doesn't matter. It's not paying the dividends that you would expect it to. The Jets took them apart from a physicality standpoint. And I would never call the Packers soft. I've heard some people say that about how they played this past Sunday. I would never call them that. But they did get whipped, man. They look like they're like moving around in this kind of haze, like, hey, what's going on? Devontae's not here. We can't throw the ball the way we're used to. What's going on? Does anybody know what the problem is? And it's like, yeah, you guys are the problem right now. And then on defense, they're top 10 in cap dollars allocated to the defensive side of the football in the NFL. And they're just getting drugged. There's a big problem there. Big problem.
We're talking to Louis Riddick of the Mothership. He'll be on the call with Matt Berry, Virginia, Georgia Tech, Thursday, 7 Eastern on ESPN. You had the Cooper Rush experiment, and now Dak comes back. Give me what you think the game plan will be with Dak, and is that different than what the game plan should be with Dak Prescott?
I think it should be exactly the same as far as philosophically how you decide to attack opponents. Meaning, let's lean on Tony Pollard and Zeke. Let's continue to keep them going. Let's continue to rotate them.
But the same blueprint you had for Cooper Rush, you're going to do the same with Dak Prescott?
I am, and I'll tell you why. Because complementary football is what got them to where they are. It's good, which is in the national media spotlight week after week for winning games. That's ultimately what they care about and what they need to be focused on. But here's the kicker with Dak. See, what Dak can do that Cooper Rush can't do is he can make the special throw, maybe the special pre-snap check audible, because he has been out on the field more times than and taken more reps than Cooper Rush, that gets them into perfect play that maybe Cooper couldn't. Dak has seen more looks, seen more pressures, seen more third down defenses, seen more red zone 2-minute defenses, to where he can make that read quicker when it comes time to throw the football and get the football where it needs to be accurately than Cooper could. So he's taking that blueprint, but he's accentuating it because he's just simply a better player. And that's all you need him to do. You don't need to kind of all of a sudden flip the run-pass ratio and all of a sudden be like, well, we're paying Dak this much money, so now we have to throw. We don't need to do that. We don't need to just do what you're doing and then let him take it to another level simply because he's a better player. And I think if they do that, and you know what, as a matter of fact, Dan, I think they have to do that, especially initially, because you can't expect Dak after this kind of layoff. And no matter what he says and what any player says, when you've been off that long and you're dealing with an injury that directly affects your performance. It's Dak's throwing thumb. He's going to have some question in his mind until he proves to himself, okay, it is good in a game setting, not in practice, not throwing balls off to the side with the trainer, but in this game, when Brandon Graham is chasing me down, I can throw this rock and put it where I need to put it. And I don't even think about it. There's going to be an acclimation period. So I think you definitely need to stick with the blueprint that they've been using. It's been working.
Yeah.
Hell, it almost brought them back against Philly.
In the final 30 seconds, who is more threatening in the long term this season, the Jets or the Giants?
Oh, been asked this question a couple of times, man, and I'm all over both of these teams. I would say in the long term, you generally think that talent wins out, right? Talent wins out, although character can overcome a lot of deficiencies, and that's what's happening with the Giants. Character is overcoming, and coaching and culture is winning. Not to say that they don't have good players, but that's what's driving the bus there. At the Jets, they have the same things. Look, Robert has some of the same things going on as far as coaching and chemistry, but they are a very, very talented young football team. In the long run, as long as they don't somehow, some way have some kind of chemistry and or culture issue crop up there, which sometimes we come to expect with the Jets because they're the Jets. They, from a talent standpoint, they have got it going, man. I would bet on the talent in the long run because that's what history says I should do. So I'll go with them. But look, Daboll right now, you have to give him the coach of the year. You have to. Right now, if you had to pick a coach, what he's done with Daniel Jones, obviously he's not the one who's keeping Saquon Barkley healthy, but what is going on with Saquon Barkley, the lack of weapons they have on the perimeter, and they're still able to move the football and score points. And Wink Martindale may be assistant coach of the year right now, considering how he leaves Baltimore. Baltimore is suffering drastically on defense, and he's got this group of players in New York playing their rear ends off. Just so many good things happening for the Giants right now. It's got to be great to be a Giants fan, but the Jets, they're not the same old Jets. Those days, I believe, are long gone. Robert Saleh said, I'm keeping receipts on people who are talking crap about me here early in the season and saying we're the same old Jets. When the time comes and this thing turns, I'm going to pull them out. It's almost time. It's early in the season. I don't know if he wants to pull them out yet, but I have a feeling he's straightening them out and organizing them on his desk and saying, I'm going to get this guy first and this guy then and this guy, because that team has turned the corner.
Okay, if there was a fight with all of the head coaches in the NFL, is Robert Saleh a number one seed?
Yeah, he is. He's up there, man. Robert's not just all bravado. The guy's kind of put together, man. He's up there. He's up there. I'm trying to think right now, like who? I would not. Oh, you never mess with wrestlers, okay? Ever.
Vrabel.
Everybody knows that on the street. Vrabel and Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott was a very good wrestler. As a matter of fact, he has said numerous times that wrestling is his first love. That was his sport. You don't mess with wrestlers. Ever.
I don't know. Brandon Staley and Zach Taylor may not scare me too much. Like analytically, they would be approaching the fight in a different way than everybody else.
You know who else would have been who else who could have rumbled, like, say, 10 years ago? Big Red, man.
Andy Reid?
10 years ago? Yeah. I'm just telling you, I played racquetball with this man a few times when we were in Philly and run into him accidentally a few times, and a few times he's hit me. I'm telling you, he's a freaking wall. And I mean, he looks like a brick wall, but I'm just telling you, he's tough as hell. Tough as hell. 10 years ago, though. Before I think he had his knee replaced, didn't he?
Would Gruden have scared you?
No. John just walks around with his chest out. Are you kidding me?
He used to walk around with a football in his letter jacket on the campus of the University of Dayton.
Yeah, that still doesn't mean you can fight.
No, he couldn't play, but he did have.
Yeah, that's true too. You know who else? You know who else would give you a run? Would be John Harbaugh.
Ooh,
he could scrap too.
How about Ron Rivera? Maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah. Look, he played with some.
Oh no, we're missing the number one seed.
Who?
Dan Campbell.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me, Lewis? He's going to bite you. He's going to.
Yeah,
he's going to take whatever it takes. Dan Campbell he'll die in battle.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's what he says. That's what he says. There's a lot of people who talk. And I'm not going to question Dan Campbell's toughness.
I think you just did.
No, I did.
Yeah,
no,
you did.
I'm not questioning. I'm not questioning his toughness, man. Anybody
Paulie, get a hold of Dan Campbell. Tell him Lewis is questioning his toughness.
We're on hold for him.
Okay.
I'll tell you this. There is a guy on his staff. There are some coaches on his staff.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. Yeah, I know that. But
Bruce Staley?
Yeah, I know. Deuce would be. I wouldn't mess with Deuce Staley.
Nope.
You know what you guys should do on NFL Live or, total breakdown on the toughest head coaches in the NFL and just have the octagon and then tail of the tape.
Yeah, that would be kind of fun.
All right. I got to run.
All right, man.
Have fun Thursday night. Always great. Thank you for spending some time.
Of course, man.
That's Louis Riddick, Mothership. Be on the call, Virginia, Georgia Tech on Thursday night, 7:30.